Just got back from our very first trip to the Abacos in the Bahamas. We've been to the Bahamas many times, love it very much, have sailed the Exumas quite a bit. However, this was our first time heading to the Abacos, and it was a delightful surprise. Check out this episode and you'll hear what we mean.
Welcome to What Could Go Right, a podcast about living boldly on and off the water. I'm Eric Orton.
I'm Emily Orton. On this podcast, we explore adventure, connection, and stepping into a more intentional life. And we don't just talk about it. We invite you to join us on guided sailing trips around the world.
And if you stick around to the end, you'll hear our sailing update where we share where we're going, when, and which trips still have space. And you'll hear a sailing takeaway from somebody who's already come on a trip with us. In 2014, we bootstrapped a year on a fixer-upper sailboat with our 5 kids. We wrote a book about it called 7 at Sea, and that became a New York Times top 10 travel book.
Let's dive in. All right. So you just got back from the Abacos, the very first time we've ever gone there. And I was saying we, as in our company, I did not attend. So I will be eagerly asking questions and wanting to hear all about it. So I guess I just want to start with, in general, what is the Bahamas like? And then we can talk about what was the same with the Exumas and then what's different.
Okay.
So in general, the Bahamas, I can speak a little to that because I have been there, but
I'll just paint a picture of kind of the regions of the Bahamas because it's quite an expansive little country. You know, there's, I think, 8,000 islands. So
I love that. Give an overview and then we can narrow down, orient us.
The main island that most people know about is Nassau, which is the capital. It has the cruise ship port that a lot of people sail into or out of. But there's a southern region, which is the Exuma chain, the Exuma Islands, that goes, they call it the Exuma chain, and it goes all the way south to the most southern tip, which is where we first entered the Bahamas. And then you come up the Exuma chain and you can jump over to Nassau, which is kind of central. And then there's a western region that we've sailed a little bit as a family. But none of us had been to the northeastern region, which is the Abacos. And so this was my first time there and I loved it and I'm happy to dive in. And so I guess I'll just say that the key features of the Bahamas are they're flat and the water is just the most gorgeous thing you've ever seen in your life, because in all the regions that I've sailed to, it's just these big expanses of turquoise water, beautiful sand everywhere. The water's very shallow. I think this week we got into maybe 30, 35 feet of depth at the most. Mm-hmm. And in some cases we were in just a few feet of water. And so it's very shallow. It's like a big plateau that's just under the water surface. And then outside of the Bahamas, it drops off these big cliffs into the deeper ocean. The Bahamas that we sail is the kind of this plateau that just sits a few feet underneath the ocean surface. And so it creates this beautiful, colorful water that just, you can't believe what your eyes are seeing.
So when you're talking about the cliff, you're talking about an underwater cliff.
Yeah, an underwater cliff where the depth of the water will go from 5 feet to 15 to 50 feet to 1,500 feet in a very short distance. And so, yeah, it just drops off. But so, yeah, if you think of like a mesa plateau in the desert and then just put it underwater and the plateau is just barely under the surface of the water, that's the Bahamas.
I love that. I know when we were sailing there as a family, when we lived aboard our catamaran Fezziwig, we sailed through the Bahamas. We spent a couple weeks there. How long do you think we spent there?
Maybe a month.
Yeah. So
not long enough.
Hardly saw any of it, but there is that generalization. And I know when people will ask our kids, oh, what were your favorite parts or what were some of your favorite places? Our youngest daughter, Lily, will always answer saying like, Bahamas, what did you like about it? Shallow water. I remember one time we actually anchored and we were maybe just a couple of feet above the surface, above the
ocean floor,
like above. There was maybe only a couple of feet beneath our keel, right?
Yeah,
there was the water was so shallow and the kids just like hop off the back of the boat, which you can do at any point and swim somewhere, but then they would just walk to shore. You can swim if you want, but you don't have to because you can reach the ground. Anyway, that was pretty fun. So the shallow water was a super nice thing. The other thing, the earth part, this you say it's a plateau, this part that emerges, the sand, so soft, so powdery. This is where our kids got, I think, completely spoiled for beaches.
Yeah.
Had to kind of learn how to appreciate other kinds of beaches, like the grainy sand in the Florida Keys or the rocky, beaches in Croatia.
California. Sorry, I know you love your beaches.
Yeah. Fun, fun. We loved going to the beaches in California, but we really did get kind of spoiled with this like baby powder soft sand. And so the Bahamas are beautiful, whichever part you go to. Nassau is a little more trafficked, parties, resorts, stuff like that. That's usually for us just a landing and taking off points to get to these outer islands. But in the Abacos, there were some really special and unexpected things. Anyway, that's my experience with the Bahamas. I love it. I would love to go again. And I think I do want to add that our son in law went on a trip with you there last year
Mm-hmm.
and he couldn't believe it. Like you said, this water's so beautiful, you can't believe it. He got there and he said, I didn't know places like this were real. I thought it was photoshopped. I thought whatever. He was astonished.
I've had
So if you haven't been there, you can't tell from not seeing it yourself.
Yeah, that was his take, and then also our friend who's a painting teacher, and she just said she's never seen colors like that with her natural eyes. And so it's what you see it in a screensaver, and then you get there, and it's the same. There's nothing's been doctored. That's just what it looks like, and that's what it is.
But it's 360 with the breeze, and
Full
you
immersion.
just can't believe it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to talk a little bit about the differences of just sort of getting there and the tone of the places.
Yeah.
So as you pointed out, Nassau, which is a little bit more of a hub, it has you'll see 6 or 7 cruise ships there in a day. There's dozens of flights in. It's very developed. It has a decent airport. And when we sail in the Exumas, we'll fly to Nassau. We're there for a day, pick up the boat and leave. And so I've never spent a night in the Atlantis Hotel. We've never been on a cruise ship there. There's casinos and golf courses and stuff, and we haven't ever done that.
Mhm.
We sort of land, get the boat, and go.
And in Nassau, one thing I love about the land and go is that the grocery stores have everything and they deliver straight to the boat. Very convenient.
Emily's favorite features for sure. And the Abacos are very different. It was quiet and really peaceful. You catch a connection hop from mainland US out there and got to the Marsh Harbor Airport, which is the main airport in the Abacos. And it's kind of a sleepy town. It's got a couple of small hotels, but you don't even know it's a hotel looking at it. Like some of the people that were in the group, they're like, oh, that's the place where we stayed. And it just looks like a 2-story building. There's nothing about it. There's no like signage that's like
A grand
hotel.
entrance.
There's one place that was a marina and a hotel, and they had a sign outside that was like the Conch Inn Marina or Hotel and Marina. So that one I knew was. But other than that, there's nothing. There's not this mega hotel that you just see from miles away like the Atlantis. There are no big ships in port. Multi-story cruise ships, and so it's very quiet. In fact, a couple of guys on the trip had planned to spend a couple extra days there, and they just said, we're actually going to change our flight, and when we get back, we're going to go to Nassau because there's literally nothing to do here unless you're
sit on the beach.
Unless you're on a boat kind of out exploring. But in Marsh Harbor, there's grocery stores and things like that, but it's not a hot spot. And so I liked that it was very quiet and a little sleepy.
Yeah, so that could be a real value add depending on what you're looking for, right? If
Yeah.
you're looking for don't need a lot of distraction, don't need a lot of activity, just want like a really calm, beautiful place to, gosh, in Finland they call it forest bathing, where you go out and sit in the woods and just absorb the peacefulness. And you could do something, but it would be like ocean immersion or whatever, just being on a quiet island.
Yeah, and it was funny because I accidentally sent everyone in our group to the wrong marina because I guess the charter company had changed locations and I didn't realize it. But everything is harbor view this, beach resort that, resort view, beach view, harbor resort. It's like I have very few words because everything is like a beach or a resort or a harbor or a view. And that's the whole thing. So the great thing about here's what I love about the Abacos. First of all, the marina is beautiful. There's a lovely pool right there, great showers and bathrooms. The people are super friendly, really, really friendly on the dock. At every place that we stopped, whether it was a restaurant or a little ice cream stop or even like a gift shop. And there aren't a lot, but we found them and people were just really pleasant and very happy, genuinely happy. They weren't jaded at all. They weren't sort of overrun by tourists, which I think I liked.
Yeah. And were they also helpful or were they just like, hey, how you guys doing?
No, very helpful
really
and
helpful.
very, like they got it done. Like I was actually pleasantly, sometimes as we're getting ready to cast off, I'm like, hey, we need some extra blankets. We need to get some paddle boards on the boat but this one was like our bags of ice were already on the boat. I asked for some blankets and they were there within 20 minutes. And, I asked for some paddle boards and went to the grocery store. And by the time I came back, everything was on the boat and ready. And so it was for me as the skipper and sort of the trip leader, it was just very smooth and easy. It's a very short ride from the airport to the marina, like maybe 15 minutes. Cabs were very reasonable. The driver was really kind and helpful. And I was like, this is where we want to go. This is the charter company. She's like, oh, no, no, no. You don't want to go there. They're not there. I was like,
Oh, she corrected you.
and I was like, hey, I trust you. You live here. And I was like, so she took us to the right place. And
That's fun.
she's like, you see? I was like, I believed you.
I see. One of your great qualities is that you have this humility that you're willing to take input.
I've been wrong a lot. I was wrong a lot this week. My crew got to see me.
It's an inside joke.
Yeah. They got to see me get it wrong a couple times. Anyway, so it was just very pleasant, very easy. The airport was just small and like, I'm trying to think, like, did I go through security or customs leaving the airport? And I did, but it was so uneventful. Like there was no line.
Hardly
You
noticed.
just walk through and they just ask if you have anything to declare. And I was like, nope. And I'm like, all right, have a good time. And so it was just easy. That's my best word for it.
And the airport was so cute. It just looked like a big beach house, like light blue with a white
Hmm?
roof and just.
Yeah. But you can fly in a regular Delta or American Airlines plane. And, sometimes these places we go to, you're in these little teeny hopper planes. They have a big enough, the great thing about the Bahamas is you have lots of flat land. And so they can build a good sized runway that can land good planes, or, larger planes, I should say. And so, you can arrive in a very comfortable plane. And anyway, so by the time we got to casting off, it had already been a very enjoyable experience. And sometimes day one for me is a little bit of an effort, just all the running around and getting things. But we had to go pick up a few items locally at the grocery store, and they had a massive grocery store that had everything we could have needed. And the people there were friendly, and they got us a cab to get us back with our stuff. And I don't know, just yeah, again, it was easy. It was fun.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the unknowns, and people care a lot about making sure they have food, the food they
Mm-hmm.
want. And we had never been to this location. We had never set foot in any of these vendor locations. And I was nervous. We were like quadruple checking everything. And very often, some of the places we go, they will not have everything on our list. Like, I'm sorry, we didn't get a shipment of black beans this week, so you're going to need to adjust your recipe, whatever it might be. And we can totally work with that. But it was just a new location. And so we didn't know. What a surprise and what a delight to be like, wow, like they are stocked. They have
Mm-hmm.
everything that we need. And there wasn't a single thing on the list that you couldn't find.
Yeah.
So,
Prices are a little higher as you might expect
I
in a
mean, it
place
gets
that's kind of,
shipped in. They're not growing it there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, everything. They had everything you needed, which was great.
That's so great.
So, okay. So we had a good prep day one, and then we went sailing, and the sailing is just lovely because there's actually the area where you sail, there's the main Abacos Island. And on the west side of the island, it's almost so shallow that you can't sail. It's hard to get into there. And so we weren't even looking at the west side of the island. We're looking at the east side. And then there's this string of keys, like the Florida Keys, except it's the Abaco Keys. And there are just these little islands that form a perimeter on the east side. And in the middle, they call it the Abaco Sea. I would probably call it more of a sound or a basin. Sea might make it sound bigger than it is. It's, a couple miles across and several dozen miles long, tall. And we really just kind of went out and just sailed along the inside of these islands, which from a sailing standpoint is great because you have this body of water that's protected on both sides, all sides. It's kind of 360 enclosed, and there's little cuts to get in and out here and there, but by and large, it's protected. So the water is reasonably flat. And then we had great wind. The first day it was, in the 20 to 25 mile an hour wind, 20 knots of wind, which can be a little bit strong if you don't know what you're doing. But,
You do.
I do. So we had some great sailing. We were cooking along, and there's plenty of remote places and there's also plenty of civilization. And it's pretty easy to get between the two of them. You can pick what you want. And then when you get to civilization, you can get what you need. It's nice. You can um, hit a little grocery store, but you can also go to a remote beach with turtles and nobody else around and have the place to yourself, all within, you know, an hour, 30 minutes, maybe an hour and a half,
Of
depending.
sailing.
Yeah. Um,
What were some of the things that you were expecting, and then what were some of the things that you were not expecting?
I was expecting to the Bahamas, the terrain I felt comfortable with, and I knew what to expect with the boat. Our boat was really nice. We had a very new boat, and we had a great crew. And so the boat itself was very pleasant and well maintained. And I think everyone on board was a little bit surprised at how nice it was, which is always, I love it when that's the unmet expectation that it's actually, or, when it's a difference of expectation that it's nicer than what people expected. And I guess the thing that I didn't expect is they had a few restrictions on where we could and could not take, or where we could not take the boat. And I wasn't used to that, but I respect that. It's somebody else's boat and they want to take care of them. And they say, kind of like, don't go here. It's a little bit hard to navigate and there's rocks that are easy to hit that are underwater. If you're sailing there for the first and only time, they just want to protect it. One place we do cut out into open ocean. We were sailing north. We cut out of the Abacos Sea and out into open ocean and then back. And they wanted us to give them a heads up when we were leaving this Abaco, the inland area, and heading. I guess maybe they've just had issues or they just want to keep track of it. But so that was different than I expected. But what I don't think I anticipated was just the quaint history and culture and quietness of it, and also the ease of it. I keep going back to that word, but there are some nice restaurants. And so you can stop and have dinner. You don't have to cook it on the boat if you don't want to. There's also little outposts with grocery stores, and you can get an extra, you can pick up a little bit of something if you're running low, whether it's produce or something a little bit more shelf stable. If you want to pick up some chicken or some milk or whatever, you don't have to have it all at the beginning of the week, which I know we try to do. We try to get everything all at once. But I'll just say we went to the first place we stopped was Green Turtle Key, and it was delightful. We ended up finding this beautiful, beautiful beach, which for me was on the south end of Green Turtle Key, which is probably one of the nicest beaches I've been to. Just really enjoyed it. It was this point where, water comes in from the ocean and it cuts into the sound and creates kind of a peninsula. Again, just probably a mile of beautiful sand, and we had it all to ourselves. That's where we spent we were close to that and we spent our first night. And then we went down to a place called Guanakee, some famous restaurants there and a nice beach. Actually, that was our lunch stop. But we also went to a place called Man of War Key and just a really rich history. I guess one of the things that I learned is that the Abacos Islands were actually first settled by folks from South Carolina that were fleeing the U.S. Civil War. And so I don't know. That's about all I know of that. But there are many, many generations. When we got to Man of War Key, there's the Albury family, and they have half the names in the cemetery and half the names on all the buildings are Albury, this or that. And there's a little teeny firehouse, a little teeny library, a little teeny town hall, but there's a history of boat builders and beautiful, everything from beautiful wooden handmade boats, which is how they started, up to fiberglass, what they call center consoles, where it's just, there's a steering wheel and kind of a podium in the middle, and you've got a couple of power engines on the back, and you can zip around and go fishing or just transporting or exploring. And the Alburys make all of them, all the way from these handmade, no power tools, wooden boats up through these fiberglass center consoles. And we talked to one guy, his name was Hartley Albury. And I was like, so, I just thought, oh, this is probably one of those places where you come in the summer or you winter here. And I said, did you grow up here? And he was like, yeah, basically this is where I didn't ask him his age. I should have, but he was probably easily into his mid or late 80s. And that's just where he grew up, on this little teeny island that's maybe 3 miles long, 2 miles long, and, a few hundred yards wide. But they have a community gathering place. They had a couple of churches, and like people genuinely lived there. And I'm sure you're going back and forth between islands. Use a boat like you'd use a car to kind of get to the different neighborhoods, and the different neighborhoods are the different islands. But to me, it was just really wonderful to see this history of this continuity of family and the history of that.
What were some of the sights, whether on the water, under the water, on the islands? What were some of the kind of the highlights?
Well, the beaches are beautiful. There's
Mhm.
certainly that. Some of the sites are under the water, really great snorkeling. Got to see some sea turtles and some beautiful fish. We actually snorkeled a reef called Mermaid Reef over by Marsh Harbor. This was the first time I was sort of, I don't want to say I was attacked. I was like, there was like these fish were either they were
They
super curious,
they were eagerly greeting me.
eagerly greeting me. That's, yeah. But they were just all in my face, like swimming around, coming right up to my mask. And I had my GoPro out and they'd come right up. And I don't know if they were expecting, maybe they've just been fed by enough tourists. It looked like, fish in the wild, but they were really in my business. And it was fun to see them up close because, to have a fish just a few inches from your eyeballs and they're looking you in the eye and, it's like, nice to meet you. And so just that, and we saw a couple of stingrays. There's just teeming with life underwater, so much richness and beauty there. And then the water itself, I don't know, I think it's like a painting because as the light and the wind and the clouds change in the sky, the ocean itself changes. And so as the light comes in and out and as clouds come and go, it just changes the contours and the colors and what you see and what it looks like and what's contrasted with it, by the land and everything else. And so it's just a constantly moving viewscape of color and texture.
Yeah. How about above?
Above water, I think the most prominent place that we stopped, and this was kind of fun. We were at anchor right off of Man of War Key, and we looked south to Elbow Key, which is where there's a place called Hopetown. Hopetown is home of the beautiful Hopetown lighthouse. It's red and white, kind of candy striped, and what I learned is that it's one of the oldest operating kerosene lighthouse is still functioning. And we were at anchor, and I pointed it out to everyone on the crew. As the sun went down, it was dark, and you look for a specific pattern to identify that light. And I said that because I saw it during the day, but I was like, I don't know if it's still actually working. But then it gets dark, and sure enough, it lights up, and they're sending out their beacon, their signal, so that everyone can be safe and feel oriented on the water. And then we went there the next day and it's open for tours. You just walk in and climb up inside. There are lighthouse operator homes right at the base because it is manually operated. It's not some remote control battery thing. And
Like, no one's up there tapping the signal, but they're just, like, making sure that's full of kerosene and everything works.
yeah, you got to
They don't have
maintain
to stay
it.
up all night.
Yeah, you turn it on and let it run. But yeah, there's kerosene containers inside that you can see with, pressure gauges. And then there's a whole set of, if you go to Instagram, I put up a reel about it, but you can see all the cogs and the grooves that are used to keep it rotating on a certain sequence. And they all have to be oiled and maintained. There were still rags kind of laying around that they use probably daily to make
Mhm.
sure that it's clean and functioning smoothly. And so you get up there and you have this beautiful sort of bird's eye drone panoramic view of the whole region out to the Atlantic Ocean, inland to the Abacos, Greater Abacos Island, and then all the boats and houses. So it was just really, really fun. There's a beautiful breeze up there. There's a breeze everywhere, almost everywhere, because it's just steady. So um, I don't know. It was just fun. Then we sailed down to a place called Tahiti Beach. And it was a little bit party-ish, people had all backed up their center console boats and there was a little bit of a floating bar and people were hanging out and, just having drinks and enjoying themselves and kids were playing in the sand. They were clearly day trippers there just for a couple of hours. But it's a beautiful, again, kind of a peninsula beach. Lots of fishing boats come in and out. Deep sea fishing boats are based there. But everything's close. There's two guys that had to get off midweek because of an important development in their family, and we dropped them off. But getting back to a place to leave them at the dock was very easy. Again, I'll just say my words for this trip are it's beautiful, quiet, and easy.
Awesome. Now, you also asked everybody kind of their takeaways from the trip. What was
Mm.
the general consensus from, the 7 people who came out and got to experience this gorgeous place with you for the first time?
I think everyone had a great time. I mean, some of us were on the same flights home, and so we kept talking even after we were off the boat. And one couple just said, we've been on a lot of vacations to a lot of
Mm.
places. cruises and all kind of resorts, and they're like, "This is just the best vacation we've been on by a long shot." And, everyone looks for something different in a vacation, but this was like, for them, this was the perfect fit. They
Mm.
really loved it, and it made me feel great. We had a lot of fun as a group. We all got along really well. Everyone got to learn what they wanted to learn and kind of get confident in sailing and just learning what it could be like. A lot of them just said, I had no idea that it could be this nice, this comfortable. I didn't think that the boat would be this automated. I thought it was going to be a lot of pulling and lifting but it's really just push a button and wait, or just push a button and keep an eye on it to make sure that everything flows smoothly, whether it's the anchor chain or it's the lines for the sails. But so I think there was that. We actually had some very unique dietary restrictions on this
Hmm.
trip, and you and Allison, who organized the food, did a beautiful job. And they said, that was one of their big concerns. And they got out there and they're just like, "Hey, we had everything we needed. We got to eat really well. It was, completely what they needed dietarily." And so they just, again, for them, it was easy and pleasant. And I think for one guy, that he just, he travels a lot, and he's just like, these are the nicest beaches I've ever seen. This
Mm.
is, and there were a couple guys traveling, married guys that were traveling together, just the guys. And so their wives weren't there, and they just, like, man, I just would want my wife to see this. I really wish my wife could see
Oh,
this. She
that's so
would love
sweet.
this. And they thought it might be a little bit more rough and tumble. And they're like, "Oh, she would, she would love this. She would be 100% comfortable here." And so, we'll just have to do another trip where they can bring their wives, and that's actually in the works. So that was fun.
I love that. So, two things. One, if there's somebody you love and you're enjoying something wonderful without them, let them know you wish they were there. You'll bring sunshine to their heart. And the second thing is that we have another trip to the Abacos coming in November. If you want to learn more about what trips are available, keep listening and you will hear the sailing update. And you'll also get to hear a takeaway from someone who's been on a trip with us. But we always like to end this portion of our episodes by asking what could go right.
Hey there, before we wrap up, I want to give you the sailing update. I'm going to tell you what's going on with 2027, and then at the end, I'll give you a few updates on what's happening this year if you want to jump on a trip. Basically, 2027, we're going to go to the BVI in January. We're mostly sold out. We have a cabin for 2 people. In March, we're going to be in the Bahamas, Exumas or the Abacos, so stay tuned for that. April, we'll be in Mexico, Sea of Cortez. May, we're going to be in Bora Bora. So if you want to fly to Tahiti, French Polynesia, and sail Bora Bora, we're going to be going there for the first time in a long, long time. So that's going to be a fun trip. June, we're in Italy. July, we're in Greece. August, we're in Croatia. September, we're in Italy. We're going to go to a second trip to Greece in September as well. And then November of 2027, we're back in the British Virgin Islands. And December, we're in the Bahamas again. So that's the lowdown for 2027. If you want to learn more about any of these trips or get the details, visit theawesomefactory.nyc/sailing. Click to sign up for a time to talk with our team, with me, and we'll get your questions answered and hopefully welcome you aboard.
We can talk about trips all day, but it's more fun to hear from someone who's been aboard. Here's a recent guest takeaway.
I was thinking about it like 2 days ago. I'm like, how easy is it to go with a group of people that are your best friends? Go and have fun, go on a boat, go on a hike, go wherever, climb to a church. I mean, it's easy. I think it's pretty easy with people that you know and you love anyway. But doing a trip like this with people you don't all know or don't know at all, and then it comes out like that is really good. That's worth so much more than with people that you actually know already. I think that.